Alright, everyone. Um, so I finally decided to put some of my thoughts on tech censorship into a video. Um, there's not a whole lot there, but I've noticed there's a lot of confusion in a way about what needs to be done and the nature of the situation. Um, so yeah, I think the main problem that we're having is a lot of these technologies like Google and Twitter and Facebook are fairly new, some newer than others, and most of it is, or all of it, is not even recognized in the law at all. So most people have been recently talking about Section 230 of the CDA, or the Communications Decency Act, and all that does is just basically gives immunity to all these companies. But as far as I know, there's no law that recognizes any of these companies by name or differentiates between a search engine and a public posting platform like Twitter, or a neutral public platform where there's basically no content generated by the company. It's just all user generated. Um, so these phenomena are fairly new, and yeah, I think the first step is to at least recognize them in the law. I think right now there's just nothing there, and they're having some Senate hearings for about a year now, and I'm yet to see any results or any proposed bills that even begin to tackle this issue. So it's great that they're having the hearings, but I'd like to see more concrete actions, or just more explicit steps as to what needs to be done, because as everyone pretty much agrees, the situation is fairly complicated. So we need to at least just we need to at least begin somewhere, and right now, this hasn't even happened. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna focus on just a couple of main issues here, that I think would be probably the easiest avenue into how to tackle this. And I'm also going to be mainly focusing on Twitter in any of these discussions, just because I'm familiar with it and it's fairly simple. I think it's pretty widely used to get information and that kind of thing. I'm not going to get into Google or even Facebook. I don't use Facebook, and I just think it's too complicated to broach, at this moment for me at least. And I'll leave Google and YouTube to other people who are more familiar with it. But yeah, so yeah, the first thing, if you just do a simple search for the with the Federal Election Commission on some of the campaign finance stuff, you see no mention of social media. Um, you see things like, broadcast, cable, newspaper, magazine, um, and this is for disclaimers, any public communications made by political committee, including communications that do not expressly advocate, and so on. So right now, in the coming elections, people who are going to vote in 2020, they were they were 14 years old in 2016, or they're going to be 18 years old in 2020. These are people that grew up with Facebook. I'm not from that generation, probably one generation older than that, but I'm fairly certain most of these people have never even held a physical newspaper uh, in their hand. I think I haven't seen stats on that, but I think that's probably accurate. So the more I read about some of these laws, I just see a huge discrepancy. I mean, you got here something about mass mailings, more than 500 mailings. I mean, I haven't mailed a letter in probably 10 years. Many of these are just completely outdated uh, technologies or means of communication. So I think, yeah, I think the first avenue to probably tackle this in any concrete way is going to be by a fair election avenue. Something like a Twitter account can be considered a donation in a way, to somebody that has it, versus somebody that's banned. I mean, again, stuff is not even recognized, and now you have some of these, now you have some of these politicians with millions of followers, and you know we all know the concept of impressions that Twitter is pretty good at providing, and you can just extrapolate the number of impressions that some of these guys with 2 million followers and stuff like that get, and it's probably in the billions. So I don't know if you want to argue that this just has no effect on elections. I mean, I think that's preposterous. The example I keep thinking of is somebody like Laura, like Laura Loomer. She's been obviously banned from a bunch of platforms, but I always say, so let's say she wanted to run in let's say in Minnesota versus Ilhan Omar. Um, you want to argue that her not having a Twitter account is just inconsequential to the election. So I can't square some of this stuff away at all. And the other thing also with Twitter is, on the one hand, they try to label political candidates that are running, and it's like, well, this is a political candidate account, and all this, and then you have some judge ruling that Trump can't block people on his Twitter feed and all this. So I think there's it's discombobulated at the moment. There's nobody knows what's going on. You got the government ruling on one thing, and then you have people being blocked, and which leads to the to the next part of this, which is something that Styx, Hex, and Hammer has commented on, pretty well. So I'd recommend viewing his content for who's not familiar. But it's just basically the amount of governmental organizations that are using Twitter. So what I did here is, I mean, this is fairly easy, but you can just searching on Twitter for some of these public accounts, and I mean, this just took me like 10 seconds, but you can spend hours. Um, you can spend hours doing this kind of thing with people putting out public information. I mean, you got police departments, you got the USGS giving out hurricane warnings and things like that, and a lot of the stuff is taxpayer funded. So you not have a situation where you got crucial information being put out on Twitter, specifically Twitter. Um, that's not being put out anywhere else. And how do you justify banning a citizen's access to this information? I mean, the example I have here, so the Houston Police Department, they're not handing out letters with these tweets that they're putting out. As far as I know, they're not calling people. So this is the sole way of receiving this communication from taxpayer funded entities. And you got people who are banned that can access this information, and then you can make a solid argument for some of the stuff is it can be life saving. So then you apply some simple probability, and you can argue that they're actually endangering people by banning them for access to this information. Um, so so yeah, I can go through some accounts here on the screen, but I mean, this is just you know fairly simple. You can do this on your own and try to you got something from the FBI, and you just go from there. Basically, you know, you, you go here and they tell you you know the list of similar entities. And again, most of these are government websites, obviously. You got all that here with people who are banned that that can't access that. And finally, the last thing I'll say about this is people like to bring up the free market argument and and the private company argument and all that. And so I think the point that's missed on people with the free market, which I think the free market is great and everything, but I think there's one point that people miss about that, which is that a lot of these technologies are time dependent. So in other words, something like Twitter, let's say versus Gab, this is not about innovation anymore. For anybody who's used Gab, the difference between Gab and Twitter functionally, it's essentially none. And these technologies are fairly simple as far as just the infrastructure. From you follow some people and you see their posts, like that can be complicated after it's been out for 15 years. So it's not a matter of innovation, which is kind of one of the founding principles of the free market. Is like people are gonna compete in innovation, and somebody's gonna come up with something better. But these things are just different. It's just about Twitter's popular because of when it came out. It was the first of its kind. Um, so what I did here is I just did some a search of the number of users, which would be the impact on elections essentially. And so you have here in the United States, you got Twitter with about 49 million users, which is, I mean, that's what a significant percentage, 20% of the voting population, or in any case, it's a huge percentage. So if you compare that to something like Gab, which is one of the only competitors, that and Parlay, so you got Gab with between 400 and 800. Let's just say 800 users. Let's say a million. Let's just say a million users. So you got a million versus 49 million. So it's like, okay, and let's say they're both growing at some rate. So probably Twitter's growing at a faster rate, I would assume, than Gab. So just simple mathematics tells you that they're never going to catch up. So I think people who are holding on to these free market principles, while it's great, I think we need to prepare ourselves that some of these things were just not designed to be, for the free market to resolve all that's there. And it's like I said before, is it possible some emerging technologies is going to come out and be awesome and displace all these existing technologies? Yeah, it's possible, but then I think you have to concern yourself with the present time, and the primary concern should be the next election. That's the language I think need to be spoken right now. That's the only meaningful thing. We can theorize when the next, Twitter and Google and all that is gonna come out, but but I think you have to ensure that you got free elections in the meantime. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it for now.